Did you know that it doesn't matter if you believe in manifestation or not? According to neuroscience, whether you like it or not, you're always manifesting your reality. That's why in this video, we will go over some amazing discoveries in the neuroscience field and how these discoveries support the practice of manifestation. But more importantly, we will discuss how you can apply these practices into your daily life so that you can transform your reality into the life that you always dream of. But first, hi there and welcome to the coffee table, a place where we read books, talk about stuff, and if we're lucky, learn something. Today, we will be talking about mind magic, the neuroscience of manifestation and how it changes everything. At the end of the video, I will rate the book and I will let you know, is this book worth your time or maybe should you move on to the next one? So let's begin. We're always manifesting our reality. The story begins with a young James living in poverty in Lancaster, California. His father, an alcoholic, and his mother, unfortunately, was chronically depressed. Let's just say that life wasn't very easy for the 12-year-old. However, one fateful day, young James wanders into a dusty small magic shop, and this is where he meets Ruth for the first time. This is a day where everything changes. Inside the shop, young James meets an elderly woman called Ruth. Ruth teaches James something far more valuable than your usual magic tricks. Instead, she introduces him to the manifestation practices that would transform his entire life. Four-step process to properly manifest, which includes relaxing the body, calming the mind, opening the heart, and setting clear intentions. Fast forward a few years, and with the help of Ruth's lessons, James was able to become a renowned neuroscientist. He has achieved wealth and success beyond his wildest dreams. He has the wife, the family, the mansion. He was even about to buy his own private island. But then, suddenly, everything changes. Thanks to the early 2000s dot-com crisis, James unfortunately loses everything in a matter of days. But here is the twist. This crisis actually helps James to put things into perspective, and he realizes that in spite of all of his material success, he still is not fulfilled in his life. This is due to the fact that when manifesting, James was missing one key element, and we will come back to it in a bit. This story shows us that we're always manifesting our reality whether we want it or not. And if we're not conscious of our thought patterns and intentionally focused towards what we want, we might manifest circumstances that are not good for us. But let's take a look at the science behind it and why it is like this. The neuroscience of manifestation. One of the most fascinating findings that is discussed in the book is the fact that our human brains can only consciously process about 0.005% of all the information that we absorb. That means that the vast majority of the things that our brain sees, hears, and encounters in our daily lives, we're not even aware of it, as it goes directly into our subconscious and we don't even notice it. This is because the human brain is designed so that it spends most of its energy in the things that it considers to be the most important. If you don't believe me, let's take a look at one of psychology's most famous experiments, the invisible gorilla experiment. In this study, subjects were asked to watch a video where students were divided in two groups. One group of students was wearing a white t-shirt and the other group was wearing black t-shirts. They were all passing a basketball. Then, the viewers were asked by the researchers to do one of these two things. The viewers can either count the number of passes made by the students in the white t-shirts, or they could count the number of bounce passes, right? Like bouncing the basketball versus the air passes. However, the funny thing is like during this video, a man in full suit gorilla just walks through the scene, right? At the end of the experiment, the researchers asked the subjects, do you see anything particular in the video? And surprisingly, only 50% of the people actually saw the gorilla. This is because, again, the brain is so focused in what it deems to be important in order to use its energy most effectively that it shuts down everything else that doesn't deem important, even if it's a giant gorilla in front of people's faces. From a neuroscience perspective, then, manifestation can be considered as the process of bringing the attention to the things that we consider important so that our brain can start registering this new information into our conscious reality. But let's take a look at how this happens behind the scenes. The steps to manifestation. Step number 1, relaxing the body, the warrior versus the monk. The nervous system is an integral part of the manifestation process. In terms of neuroscience, you can think of the nervous system as a warrior and a monk made out of neurons and connected by networks. But let me explain. Neurons are nerve cells in the brain and the spinal cord that send messages all over the body and allow you to do all sorts of things, as talking and breathing. The author describes neurons as multi-sports athletes that form and change teams depending on the activity needed. Manifestation is dependent on these neurons and how they communicate with each other or their teams, called neural pathways. So, if you want to manifest good things and a desired outcome, it is important to train your neurons in the proper way and put them in the right team so they can make the right connections. The warrior of the nervous system. Thanks to evolution, our nervous system is divided in two main sections: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system, or SNS for short, is the warrior whose job is to ensure our survival. This is the system responsible for the famous flight, fight, or freeze response, and it was meant to keep us alive during our previous times as a species cruising the savannas of Africa. The issue, however, is that this survival warrior mode is meant to be short-lived. However, evolution has this funny thing where it tends to add things as opposed to remove them. And therefore, even though we're no longer threatened by, say, saber-toothed tigers, we still have the same system that our ancestors had when, say, responding to a passive-aggressive email from a coworker. Whether before our ancestors had the occasional threat in the savannah, we're constantly faced with anxiety-inducing situations. Being in this warrior mode constantly is unhealthy for us for many reasons. However, from the manifestation point of view, it is quite detrimental because a stressed out and activated sympathetic nervous system works alongside other networks inside of brain to feed into our inner critic. And the more attention we pay to our inner critic and we're more stressed out, the less attention we put into the necessary things so that our brain can focus in creating the neural pathways necessary for manifestation. This is why, to manifest effectively, we need to learn first to calm down our warrior's sympathetic nervous system and recruit our inner monk instead. Our inner monk. The parasympathetic nervous system is our inner monk whose job is to calm down the body and return it to a restful and peaceful state, a process called homeostasis. Recruiting the parasympathetic nervous system, or our inner monk, is crucial for manifestation because only then our brain will allow us to create the neural pathways necessary to unlock our subconscious. In other words, this inner monk is the only one who has that magic key to open the door to our subconscious mind and let these new positive thought patterns enter our conscious reality. Again, this is why it's so important to learn to relax our body, calm our warrior, and recruit our inner monk so that manifestation can start happening in the brain. Step 2. Taming the mind. As we have discussed before, the whole point of manifestation is to put your attention in the right things so that we can bring these things into our conscious reality. The default network mode, or the DNM, is the neurological pathway responsible for the brain activity when we are focusing inward, like meditating or talking to ourselves. The issue is when our warrior sympathetic nervous system is activated, it actually collaborates with this default network mode to create the all too familiar voice in our head, better known as our inner critic. So of course, when we are more stressed out, we tend to be more critical of ourselves. And this is one of the reasons why the collaboration between the sympathetic nervous system and the default network mode. Although we're probably familiar with the inner critic in our heads and we can see how it is a pain in the butt, from a manifestation perspective, it is detrimental because, again, it distracts us and it takes away our focus from the things we want to manifest. As the saying goes, where attention goes, energy flows. This is so true. If we focus on the positive, eventually we will manifest them in one way or another. However, if we focus in what our inner critic has to say, it will be much harder to manifest what we want. So, in other words, if you're constantly stressed out, it will make it much harder to manifest the outcome that you want. According to the author, another issue is that many of us humans tend to run away from discomfort, and that includes unpleasant thoughts. We might also associate bad thoughts with our own sense of identity. For example, oh, I'm so depressed, or I'm an anxious person, or I'm this, or I'm that. But the author suggests instead of running away from the train of bad thoughts, we should embrace them and get on board instead. The idea here is to recognize thoughts for what they are, just thoughts. They are not part of our identity. And although thoughts can definitely influence our reality, and often they do, not need to be in the driver's seat. With meditation and other mindful practices, we can practice and learn how to let go of unpleasant thoughts without resisting them. We just bring our attention to other more productive thoughts instead. This is also an act of self-love and self-acceptance, recognizing that while our bad thoughts are part of ourselves, we don't necessarily need to pay attention to them and let them dictate our lives. Of course, these practices require constant work, as manifestation is definitely not a one-off. It is, as the name implies, a practice, and it requires to practice it. Step 3. Opening the heart. If we go back to James' story, we might remember that although he was able to manifest all sorts of wealth and success, he was still unfulfilled and unhappy. And this is because he was missing one key element from his manifestation practices. And that key element is compassion. According to the author, this is probably the most important step. Clarifying what you want is a crucial step for manifestation, but ideally, what you want will come not only from happiness, but more so from fulfillment. In fact, according to studies, many people that claim to be happy often tell that they are unfulfilled. But what is the difference between the two? While happiness tends to focus more on the here and now, fulfillment focuses more on the long term and it's full of meaning. While happiness also tends to be associated with more about taking, I want money, I want success, I want beauty. Fulfillment tends to be associated more about giving, serving, and being part of a larger purpose in a community. This is where compassion comes into play. When clarifying what we want to manifest, it is important that we do so from a compassionate heart instead of trying to manifest probably what others have told us would make us happy. Of course, we all know that social media and marketing and whatnot, not that I'm against any of those. In fact, I love those. But we're constantly bombarded with messages of what we're supposed to want. The reality is that our hearts might desire something different, something more meaningful and more deeper, I should say, such as connection. For example, when James realized that his manifestations were mostly from a material outward success, his fulfillment was very fleeting and eventually everything crumbled down because it was not sustainable. This made him conscious of what he was already manifesting and kind of reroute his desires to more meaningful manifestations. This step will allow us to properly clarify our intention. And talking about intention, step 4, clarifying intention. As explained before many times by now, manifesting is all about putting your attention in the right things. And clarifying our intention means that we are putting the attention in the things that we truly desire, the things that come from our higher self and our heart, as opposed to maybe what society tells us that we must manifest. Our intention comes from the heart, and when it is clear, it acts as a North Star, if you will, as a guide that will guide you through, good times and down times, because you will know that is your purpose and that is where you want to go. In simpler terms, having a clear intention is like having a point set up on a map. So, would I recommend Mind Magic? I would say yes. To me, it is a 5 out of 5, and I much recommend this reading, as it is one of those books that leaves you not only with practical tips, but also inspire, basically. I think also Dr. James R Doty does a fantastic job of taking such a complex subject as it is the subject of neuroscience and making it simple to understand and actually entertaining and relatable with all the stories that he uses. So yes, definitely a must if you are into manifestation, self-development, or just are curious about what is going on inside our brains. If you're still here, thank you so much for having a chit chat with me here at the coffee table. If you're still interested in more psychological and brain stuff, I highly recommend you to watch my other video, The Psychology of Money. Super interesting stuff. Other than that, if you like the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up or subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day and take care. Bye.